I've made mistakes that cost me money. I've made mistakes that cost other people money, but by the grace of God, I've never made mistakes that cost me an arm or a leg or even my life. Today, we're going to talk about the 5 top common mistakes that will help you to avoid as much as possible those things that I just mentioned. All right, let's get into it.
Me and my God always conversating. He say I'm happy you call, what you been up to lately.
What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Life in Plumbing. I'm Nate, and we are going to talk about the 5 top common mistakes. Here's one that no one ever talks about, right? Until it's too late. Finding the points of connection, whether it be gas or water. Where are those connections at? And where are the keys if needed when an emergency breaks out with the gas or the water, so that you're able to cut those off. And in the years that I've been plumbing, I have seen this countless times. No one knows where the shutoffs are except the foreman. For me, whenever I get out there, I'm always letting everybody know what's going on so that we can all work as a team. As we're walking by, like, hey man, just to let you guys know, if anything happens, here is the shutoff for the water. This is the point of connection. This is where it's going to come into the building. You shut off this valve right here, it's going to cut off everything and you can go to work. Gas, same thing. This is the point of connection. If anything ever happens, come right over here, shut this off first, so you don't have to think about it. There was one time we were on a job and the front valve was, man, water was just exploding. It came up like 10 feet in the air of water. And it just busted. It happened like 3 times on this exact same job. Water's going crazy. Foreman's trying to shut off the water valve where the water is coming out at. I mean, I didn't get that, but that's what he was trying to do. And he's yelling, going crazy at everybody. And, no one knew where that shutoff was, right? And not only that, where are the keys? Does it need a key, right? This shutoff happened to be on the other side of the building, like not the building we were working on, but the other side of the existing building. So it was down there, it was a ways away, and he had to book it over there just to do it while the water's going crazy. Luckily, it was outside and not inside. But that was one, that's an example of, let everybody know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And in construction, we have a lot of people coming in and out, Me personally, I always like when I end up on projects where I'm there from start to finish, because then you know what's going on. Everybody knows what's happening. A lot of times I end up on projects where, people are coming and going from different projects and no one knows anything what's going on. It's like a new project every day, right? And you try to tell somebody, what's going on and stuff like that. And then the time of the accident happens, they're not there. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully, somebody picks up on that one of these days and figures out, how important it is to keep people who know what's going on, or educate them as soon as they get there. Like, hey, this is protocol. I'll let you guys know what's going on. So then everybody can hold themselves accountable. If something happens, it's not just all on the foreman. Always know, and it's not something you have to know right away, but if it's your first day out there, at least try to find out sometime during the day where these points of connections are, so that you can make sure you looking out for, not just the job, but your foreman and your teammates, man. Just because, if it's in the building, that can cause a lot of damage. You know what I'm saying? A lot of damage, man. And like I talked about in the beginning of this video, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost them money, these type of mistakes, and it can also cost you your job. You know what I'm saying? So you want to be on top of everything that can potentially harm the building and cost the company money. All right. Number 2. Now this one's important. Check to see if there's pressure in the lines. All right. I don't care what you're working on. I mean, always check if there's pressure in the lines. Man, so many times, man, I get up, and especially if you're new and you're an apprentice, man, these foremen, they're not thinking, their minds are everywhere. They'll remember shutting off a valve a couple days ago and assume that valve is still shut off, tell you to go cut into something, and that water will come flying out. All right. Now, if you cut into a pipe and it's a thin hole and it's a little pinhole type of cut, it's going to shoot out depending on the pressure of that. So you always, even if it's not water, if it's air, anything, you know what I'm saying? You always want to be aware of that. Make sure no matter who tells you, you personally go. Make this a habit. Make this a habit. You go out, you check, and make sure you know where these valves are at, and you know when they're off or on. Okay, and make sure you go and test if you got nipples sticking out. Make sure you twist them off a little bit. See if you hear any air. If you can't figure out how to see if there's air in it, go and check, because it's your life on the line. So I was on a job recently, maybe a couple months ago. And right before I got there, I heard there was they shut the whole job down. And what I found out was it was a sprinkler fitter, probably been doing it for years. He was working he's working in a Chili's, and he had this, he was working underneath, they had fire sprinklers above the stove, and he was working underneath the hood of it. And what happened was, I guess he was either comfortable or he may have made a mistake. I don't know what happened that day, but I know that he ended up doing something with that fire sprinkler, and that fire sprinkler shot out right and took out his eye. So now he doesn't have an eye. PPE. I don't know if he had his PPE on. I can't remember what they told me, but I mean, even at that, I'm pretty sure that pressure was high, and it came straight at his eye and took that mug out. So he probably didn't shut it off. Obviously, if he's working on it, I'm pretty sure he probably thought it was shut off. Somebody told him it was. He just went in there, boom. And all of a sudden now he lost his eye. I mean, he's still alive from what I heard, and he's still good, but I mean, now he has to live without an eye. I mean, these things are critical. So me growing up in this trade, man, people were like, if I had foremen tell me to go cut stuff that were live, okay? So I got to the point, when you're first new in there, you're doing exactly what you're told, and you're afraid to speak up. Do not be afraid to speak up. Do not be afraid to go out there and protect your life, because they won't care. They're trying to get the job done. They're not thinking about it until the accident happens, and guess what? They still blaming you for saying, well, you should have been checking your own stuff. So I'm telling you ahead of time, they're gonna blame you if you don't go and do your job, right? They might be mad. They're gonna be mad at you either way it goes. They're gonna be mad if you don't listen to them and just go ahead and cut it, and they're gonna be mad at you if something happens and you didn't go and check it. So always go and check it. You know what I'm saying? It's your life. It's your responsibility. So be on top of that. Every company's supposed to have like safety meetings and stuff like that every week, and a lot of these companies don't take that seriously. So you know what I mean? Make sure you take it seriously, because it's your life. At the end of the day, it's no joke out here in construction, man. You can't be playing around. You got to make sure you are on it. Make sure you are aware of your surroundings and everything that's going on. Make sure you know what I'm saying, when some people tell you to do something and you kind of fill them out and know that, hey, he messed up before. But like I said, anyway, always check on your own. You know what I'm saying? Don't ever leave your life to chance for nobody. That was number 2. We're gonna get into number 3. This goes with the other ones. Anytime you install a valve, make sure you always shut it off. I had a time where we were doing this 3-story school, and what happened was I was rushing. It was the end of the day. They were like, all right, come on, Nate, come on. And I remember I was just hitting this valve. You know what I'm saying? I was just soldering up the top of it. I remember, I don't know what it was for, maybe for like a science class or something, but I had the valve coming into the class. It was years ago. And I just remember I had the copper coming down. It was a 1/2-inch line with a 1/2-inch valve on it. And I left it open because I was assuming, it was just hot. I wanted the air to get through for it to seal all up. That's just what I was thinking back then, I remember. And I bounced. The next morning, and they went and turned on the water without even asking if, the valves are off, if everything was checked, without even making a check. You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy anybody would do that in such a big school and just assume the valves are off everywhere. People can go turn on a valve for any reason. I mean, there's other people working in there, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they needed water real quick for something they're doing. They'll turn it on assuming that there's water in it, and if there's not, they leave it off and walk away. I've seen it done before. And that's, so I'm not blaming them for turning it on, but I'm also not blaming myself for keeping it off. For keeping it open, because at the same time, we all should have been doing our job, and I should have closed it. They should have went and checked. It is what it is, but at the end of the day, whoever hand was on that valve last, you were going to be the one blamed for it. And like I said, It was on a 3-story building and it was at the top floor, and I flooded out that whole room. You know what I'm saying? Actually, the owner was cool. He was like, man, don't even write him up about it, man. He knew that I was sincere about it. Like I didn't know somebody was gonna come in the next day and say, all right, let's just turn on the water and test the whole building. For me, that's just ridiculous to do, but that's what they decided to do, and it was on me. So I'm just telling you guys, man, make sure you are on top of that, because they do not care. They will flip that on and blame you in a second, because they just wanna get the job done as fast as they can. And, and that's what happens, you know what I'm saying? So always, no matter what valve you're doing, just make it a habit to turn it off, you know what I mean? Especially when you're in these classrooms, when you're in buildings, you know what I mean? You wanna make sure that it's a habit, something that you just naturally do anytime, so that you never have to worry about it. All right, number 4, all right, common mistake number 4. Okay, over tightening your fittings. You're doing a mop sink, right? You're doing a mop sink, you got your higher 90s, your brass 90s sticking out, you're gonna put your nipple in them, right? Sometimes when you're putting those nipples in and you're tightening, those higher 90s, those brass 90s, they crack. And I've seen it a lot of times happen. For anything that you're going to twist in, they always tell you to have that plumber's touch, which you're not gonna get for a few years or a couple years until you just got it or you've done it enough to just know, like, all right, this is what it is. A common rule for me is like, I'd rather it leak outside the wall without being cracked than for it to be cracked and leaking once it's all finished. I remember tightening it just to get it there, just to stop it from leaking a little bit. And I remember I over tightened it, right? So what happened back then, I probably either put on the Teflon backwards. On that Teflon, it was backwards. So as I was spinning it in, that Teflon was probably coming off. So that's something to be aware of too. Make sure you are wrapping your Teflon the correct way. And if you twist it too much, you will break that brass 90. And if it's behind the wall at that time, now you got a bigger situation. You know what I'm saying? So it's always best to take it all out, make sure you redo it, put it in there, and then wait. So what I like to do too is when I'm dealing with like pipe dope and I'm dealing with like Teflon, like when you pipe dope it and put it back in there, wait. Like if you can, wait till the next day to come back and fill it up, because I've always, like when you just hurry up and put like tom caps in, if you guys familiar with tom caps, on the clean outs on the plugs, you're putting this tom cap in, you're having to dope it and tape it, you put it in there, and then you hurry up and fill it up with water for test. It always has like this little leak, and then you'll get an inspector who, if he sees any water at all, it's a fail, you know what I mean? Like he's failing it. So you gotta make sure that they're legit. I've often seen that when I waited, I'll put them on there and we wait a day. The next day, it's like, it's dried up, it's really like in there, and you have a better chance of it not leaking. But yeah, man, if you're ever tightening, make sure don't over tighten it. You know what I'm saying? If it's leaking a little bit and you gotta redo it, you'd rather do that than to have to crack a fitting and have to work behind the wall now. And it's just a lot more work, it's a lot more money and time. So, I mean, it's something, you may crack one even after hearing all this stuff, because it just is what it is. But now just be mindful, anytime that you're, twisting anything in, you do have that chance of it cracking. So you just wanna be mindful of that. Number 5, here's what I didn't learn till later on. And right before I journeyed out, ask more whys and less what to do's. What I mean is, ask why you're doing something when you can, rather than what to do. All right. So people just come in there, what do you want me to do? All right, cool. And they tell you how to do it. Man, you're gonna get so much more out of asking why. Like so many times when I first started, because I didn't know nothing about plumbing, I didn't know nothing. I was like not mechanically inclined. Like I had to learn all this stuff, right? I mean, from scratch, you know what I'm saying? A lot of tools I never heard of, used. I remember I was struggling with a lawnmower before I even got into the trade. So getting that understanding of how the system worked, right? I remember somebody told me, it's like, yeah, Nate's a good plumber. He'll go out there and he'll set it all up, but he doesn't understand the theory of plumbing. And I remember hearing that and I'm thinking like, okay, what does that mean, right? I don't understand. Theory of plumbing is basically saying he doesn't understand how it all works, how this all comes together and how it's efficient. And I remember that changed my life. I was just like, dang, okay. yeah, I never did ask that. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm being real with y'all. I just never asked it. Like, I was there for the money and that was it. Like, all right, cool. I just want to go home, do my 8 and go home. When I started asking how things work, I became more interested. I became more curious and I became more into what I was doing. Like, I loved it because I was like, man, I'm about to make this work like this. And it helps you to think in those times where the plans won't help you, nobody knows really what's going on. It helps you to like put things together like, okay, well, if this needs to do this, then you start to connect the dots. You know what I'm saying? You fill in those blanks with that critical thinking. You know what I'm saying? Because you're understanding how things work. And man, it's life changing, man. It actually makes your day go by faster when you're getting into your work. Like, ask a lot of whys, right? Like me growing up, I was a kid that sat in the back of the class, like didn't ask any questions. Like, let's just get through this, right? But now I'm like, man, why wasn't I into it? Why didn't I just jump out there? Like, man, how does this work? How does this work? I'll tell you why though. Because I'm pretty sure I've asked once or twice, and people like foremans and stuff, they don't have time to explain everything to you. When you're in class, like, you know, you don't really learn in class. I didn't really learn in class. I was like uninterested until I got into the field and I was hands-on, because half of the stuff that we're explaining in class, I've never seen before. So it's not like I could just be like, hey, what about this? Something I don't even know about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could talk about it all day, but I don't really know how it works and exactly what to do with something. So when I'm out in the field, that's when I'm supposed to ask questions. But it's so backwards nowadays where it's like, okay, I ask the questions about this in class and then go out there and do the work. It just doesn't work like that. We learn as we are doing stuff. And so a lot of times nobody had time to teach me, so I just didn't care either. It was just like, all right, whatever, just get through the day and that's what it is. But when I journeyed out, you know what I'm saying? I suffered from that because I didn't know a lot of the stuff. And even till this day, I'm still learning a lot of stuff. And on top of that, you know, plumbing's evolving and things are turning into smart everything. So it's like, you know, you got to keep up with everything. So, you know, I'm taking time to re-educate myself, and I'm learning as I'm talking to you guys every day. But yeah, man, that's one thing that I can say that I wish that I would have done more, regardless of how they felt. Like, man, well, let me know how it works so I can figure this out. You know what I mean? I should have had that attitude, but just getting into it and not knowing what's going on and kind of learning as you go, like, it's overwhelming and it's kind of, you know, intimidating. But you know, that's why I wrote the book Don't Be Green, because I felt like, man, I wish I wasn't green going through this, because, you know, first impressions are everything. So if you come in and you're kind of timid, this is how they're going to treat you. This is going to determine where they're going to put you when you're out there, or how they view you. So you want to go out and make your first impressions as confident and as secure as possible, so that, you know what I'm saying, you get the most out of the opportunity of being at that company and doing whatever you're doing. And I learned that later on in my plumbing career. But yeah, man, so those were my 5 common mistakes. Man, I threw some tips and tricks in there for you guys. I hope you guys got something from this. You know, I'm always here teaching you guys what I'm learning so that you guys can have a way better experience than I had coming in here. Even though it was good, it's still, there's stuff that I wish I would have known before I got in there to make it a lot more, you know, a lot more easier. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. All right, peace.
He say I'm happy you call, but you've been up too late.